On everyone. So by now, I'm sure all of you are aware that the Los Angeles Lakers missed their shot on Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley decided to stick around with UConn. This is something that personally I expected. I tried to relay that in all the videos that I made about it. I just thought after kind of evaluating the situation that it didn't make sense for Dan Hurley to leave UConn. The Lakers weren't going to offer him that much money to where it would make that much of a significance, right? I think this was never really about money. I think that this was about just him kind of using leverage in a lot of ways. I think, he kind of wanted to stay with UConn, wanted them to kind of pony up a little bit more. I mean, he took basically the same amount of years for like $20 million less than what the Lakers were offering. So again, I don't believe that this was a money thing. I think that this was just a leverage play used by Dan Hurley. Problem is that now the Lakers are in this position to where it's like, well, what now? Like, what do they do now? Right? Because like Dan Hurley, like that was the prize. And according to reports, according to Woj and everybody, like this was in the works for the last month. And like this was the guy that behind the scenes, the Lakers were throwing everything at. I mean, there's reports coming out that the Lakers didn't really even talk to JJ Redick, that it was all minimal, right? And that like the other reports were just, exaggerated and stuff. And like the Lakers haven't really done their due diligence on other coaches because they just believe that they were getting Dan Hurley, right? So like that's the case. That's a problem for the Lakers because we are literally like weeks away from the NBA draft and you need to get a coach, right? Like you want your coach to come in before the draft so that way you could go and, kind of work with that coach to establish the culture and the picks and the players, whether you draft somebody or what I think they'll end up doing is trading the 17th pick. But even if you trade that pick, right, you still want your head coach to kind of have a say in whatever piece that you're using to trade and unload, right? Like you want the head coach to be involved in whatever process you're doing. And then literally like days later, you got free agency, right? Which again, you want your head coach lined in and locked up. So according to reports, the Los Angeles Lakers are basically hitting the reset button and are going to kind of start the process all over and dive into some of these coaching candidates. JJ Redick, James Borrego, the two usual suspects, the guys that were reportedly the front runners the last like month. Supposedly they're supposed to kind of dive back into them. They're still very much on the table as far as being the Lakers head coach. The problem is that James Borrego, on some reports, is pretty close to being the Cleveland Cavaliers head coach, right? Now, look, this is, if the Lakers really do indeed look to like dive back into it and kind of go over an interview again with everybody and kind of plan B, then the problem is like how many of these coaches feel slighted? How many of these coaches are like, I'm the second option or the third option, right? Like, oh, well, now you missed out on your guy. Now you want me, right? Like, where the Cavs, like, for Borrego, he might look at it like I was their first option. They want me. Like, you had your opportunity. You interviewed me. We had a talk. Like, supposedly the Lakers interviewed him twice, right? So at some point, it's like, all right, like, well, you guys don't want me. That's fine. I'll just go over here, right? I really default to JJ Redick is going to end up being the head coach. I think what's going to end up happening is the Lakers are going to take their time. They're going to play around. I still believe that the Lakers, from the get-go, were very likely going to sign JJ Redick. I think the Dan Hurley thing, I do believe the Lakers were interested in him. I do believe, like, if the Lakers could have landed him, they would have. But I think they did that and engaged in that with the idea of, like, well, if that doesn't work, then we just get our other guy, which is JJ. It's a win-win scenario for us. Right? If we get Dan Hurley, beautiful, right? That's probably the best candidate. If we don't, then we just hire JJ Redick, right? When the finals is over, right? Like that's genuinely what I think. Again, I don't know this for certain. I'm just a guy. I don't have inside information. I'm not Woj or anything like that. I'm not talking to Rob Pelinka on the regular. Like, I'm just a guy, but again, for the last month and a half, all we've heard is JJ Redick, JJ Redick, JJ Redick. JJ Redick's literally having an interview and basically says he's going to be the head coach for the Lakers. Like, it's just, I don't think that was nothing. Right? I even said this when the Dan Hurley news came out. Right? And everyone was like, oh, JJ Redick was a smoke screen, blah, blah. I was like, I don't believe that's the case. I don't think JJ Redick was ever the smoke screen. I think JJ Redick really was always the front runner. I think he really was always that guy. I think, because again, I mean, even Dan Hurley, right? The Lakers didn't even, supposedly they were talking to him and in talks with him for the last 5 weeks or whatever, right? But they didn't meet with him until 3 days ago? Like, what? So you're telling me that they've been going back and forth. He's been a real candidate. He was seriously considering the job. And for a month, you did what? For a month, you just what? He sat on his thumbs and you sat on your thumbs? I don't necessarily buy that personally. I think that they touched base with him. Coach K was, based on reports, kind of the connection. I think they kind of floated the idea out there. I think that they were heavily considering JJ Redick. I think that they looked at it and went, well, we can't hire JJ Redick till after the finals anyway. So let's at least, explore this and talk and see where this goes. And then I think Dan Hurley was like, oh, hey, maybe I would consider it, right? And I think that eventually he was like, all right, fine, I'll sit down and let's talk, right? And they had that conversation. The news leaked and everybody was like, all right, cool. Dan Hurley's going to be the new head coach. And JJ Redick's probably on ESPN. Like, what? Like, what's going on? And then now I think that, Dan Hurley ends up staying. I think JJ Redick's going to end up being the head coach. Again, I could be completely wrong. Maybe they do come in and swoop in and they don't want the Cavs to hire Borrego and they do. But who's to say Borrego wants the Lakers job now? Right? Like, maybe they do sign a Sam Cassell or something like that. I don't know for certain. I just look at the information that we have and what has been the consensus. Right? From not just one, but like multiple credible people. And the consensus has been JJ Redick is going to be the head coach. Right? And then Dan comes out of left field and it's like, okay, well, so like what, really? Like everybody was just lying about JJ Redick? Like everybody? They were just making it up? Like, I don't buy that. Again, I don't buy that. There was so much smoke, and usually where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, it doesn't always turn into a big blaze, but, it could be a little smolder, but, still, like, there's something there. And now the Lakers are supposed to meet with JJ again, supposed to meet with Borrego again, and all these guys. I think what will end up happening is the Lakers are going to fumble the bag again. I think Borrego's going to end up signing with the Cavs. And then I think JJ Redick's going to end up falling face first into the Lakers head coaching job. And JJ Redick's going to ultimately be the Lakers head coach. Again, I could be completely wrong. But I just think Rob Pelinka in the Lakers front office, I think that they, a lot of people look at this as like, oh, they really blew it, blah, blah. I don't think that they looked at it that way. I don't. I think that they looked at it exactly what I said they looked at it as when I said this literally, 4 days ago now or whatever, where I was like, I believe that the Lakers are looking at it as a win-win situation. I think they're looking at it as we have two guys that we are absolutely enamored with that we would love to have. Option, but the grand prize, Dan Hurley, the consolation prize, who we believe. I mean, there were reports that said that the Lakers believe he's the next Pat Riley, right? Like, where that came from somewhere, right? Like, so my thinking is that I believe that the Lakers, again, I don't know, this is just my thoughts, but I believe that the Lakers were like, if we can get Dan Hurley, that's the grand slam, right? But if we can get JJ Redick, right? If Dan Hurley says no, we don't get the grand slam, but we get the bases loaded triple, right? So we didn't get all four guys home, but we got three of them. That's how I perceive this whole situation. I think the Lakers were looking at it as, hey, it's a win-win situation. Right? I think the Lakers, they got Dan Hurley, they would have been happy, they would have been stoked, they would have gotten the better option of the two, but they missed out on him. It's like, okay, we just fall back into JJ. We're good. Everything's okay, everybody. And look, I like JJ. I think JJ is going to do a good job, right? I'm not really worried about the on-court stuff. I'm just, can he manage and handle everything else that goes in with being a head coach? Because it's a lot more than just like, calling timeouts and, drawing plays on a whiteboard, right? Like there's a lot that goes into being a head coach at an NBA level. So if he can kind of work through all that, I think he'll be okay. But we'll see. Again, it just kind of seems like the Lakers are kind of scrambling, right? It kind of seems like, that there's this just like, okay, we lost Borrego, now what? And now there's all these reports that the Lakers are going to kind of take a step back and kind of hit the refresh button and go, okay, well, let's go through this process again. It's like, what have you been doing the last month? if that's really the case, right? Like, you're telling me the Lakers they didn't have a plan B, they didn't have anything? I don't necessarily buy that. I don't, right? Like, you gotta, like, there's no way that they thought, okay, well, James Borrego's the only guy. Like, if I evaluated it and went, okay, there's 20 reasons why he's gonna say no, right? Like, then the Lakers had to have done that too. Literally, all the reasons I said that he would not take the Lakers job, Woj literally came out with an article that said pretty much verbatim what I've been preaching the last few days. I don't think that the Lakers didn't think of that. If they didn't, then that's a real problem, right? That's a real problem, because some random guy on the internet can come to that conclusion and just see with his eyes that, like, hey, this isn't going to happen, right? The Lakers had to have been prepared for that too. And I just don't think that there's been months of just heavy reports and talks of, like, hey, JJ is this, and, you know, like, JJ was one of the first people the Lakers spoke to, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think that you go from that to, like, oh no, the Lakers didn't talk to anybody. Like, I don't know. Again, could be wrong. It's my thoughts. As always, this is a discussion. I want to hear yours. Let me know down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Now, first off, how do you feel about the Dan Hurley situation? How do you feel about this Lakers situation as a whole? Man, this has been the greatest soap opera of the year thus far. It's gonna be a wild season. But anyway, again, love your thoughts and opinions. However you feel, let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.